Well, it's a beautiful day out today, and looks like tomorrow is going to be a nice day as well. We're in Jeremiah, and we're in chapter 22. And it starts out just as so many chapters have in Jeremiah, thus saith the Lord. What a wonderful thing that is. When the Lord speaks, we should listen. And he talks about the kings. It's interesting if you have ever done the walk through the Old Testament with walk through ministries. You remember that there were a number of kings, uh, first starting out with the united kingdom of David and then Solomon, and then a divided kingdom, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Northern kingdom being Israel, and the southern kingdom being Judah. We're looking at Judah right now, and we see that Josiah was the last of the good kings, and then his son and other kings after him were not so good. And today, in this particular chapter, in chapter 22, we see that Jehoiakim and Jehoiachin both have been warned that they're not going to last. They're going to go into either captivity or be killed, and that's exactly what happened. And that's one of the things that brings such great credibility to the Bible, is the prophecies made by prophets years before the events occurred, and happening exactly as the prophet said. The prophet said, you'll go into captivity, they went into captivity. If the prophet said they would die, they died. And so we see this wonderful message of the reality of God's prophets being able to see ahead and be able to tell what God had in the future for a nation, for individuals, and for the world. And so we see this terrible devastation that's going to come upon Judah, and more specifically the city or the area of Jerusalem. But it's also encouraging to know that he never turns his back on his people. He never turns his back on his chosen people. He never turns his back on those that have accepted his son Jesus as Savior. And it's an encouragement for all of us in these unsettling times when we see a change of guard, where leadership now supports homosexuality. They support abortion right up until the day that the baby is born, and they support many of the things that we don't support. At the same time, we got to trust that God allowed them to come into power, whether legally or illegally. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's very frustrating to think they got in there by fraud, but nevertheless, even if they did, God allowed it. And we have to now make sure that future elections are even more secure, and that proper identification of voters and bipartisan watchdogs be allowed to watch how elections are run and how the results are counted and so on. I think we'd all like to have a greater confidence in the whole voting system, and I would hope that the Democrats would want the same thing, to protect the integrity of the vote that goes out for them. After all, we are a country that believes in votes counting. In any case, I'll get off my political soapbox and just tell you that God has it all under control. He made it very clear that Jehoiakim and Jehoiashim would both meet not desirable ends, and that's exactly what happens. It doesn't take us very long to look in the history books to find out that Jehoiakim reigned for 11 years, but he did get taken into captivity and died in Babylon, and that Jehoiachim, Chim, only had a kingdom of 3 months. And so we see the prophecies of this to be a very, very accurate prophecy set in advance to bring great belief that God knows in advance what's going to happen. He controls the future, and he will in America as well. So pray for peace. Pray for peaceful transition. Pray that nobody gets harmed in Washington today and throughout the future. That we be able to trust God to protect us against bad legislation, and that there be enough righteous people who vote their conscience to bring about the right rules and regulations, the right controls, and that our nation be protected, where we still have a huge number of believers, which is demonstrated through the very close vote in many places. So in any case, we look at this and we look at verse 13 in particular and see that woe to him who builds his house without righteousness and without justice. And I think that's a good word for today. We need to be sure that we conduct ourselves in a way that it's righteous and that it's with justice, and that we serve and honor God, worshiping him daily and continuing to study his word to direct our paths. And I think that all of us can remember Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all of your ways, and he will direct your path. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.